Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. My name is Uti Elu and today we have a full house for the first time in quite a while. I'm joined on set today by the beautiful Diola, the effervescent Mercy, and our songbird, Sanzi.
Is there songbird?
Yes.
I have to rap.
You have to. You know, if you've got it, flaunt it.
Yeah.
Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Lovely to see
Hola.
everybody looking radiant
Yeah.
and peaceful in this our here
Like
times.
we don't live in Nigeria.
Yeah, you know.
We just got it.
We're just visiting.
Yeah.
We're bringing it.
I saw a meme the other day where it said, if my out of office or my status says I'm in Dubai and you happen to see me in these local streets, just accept that
You
you're also
better
in
drink
Dubai.
water, mind your business.
And keep it moving. Please don't ruin the moment. So
I mean,
right now,
that's. I mean, I think that's practical enough.
Yeah.
Given that we're in a world where people can choose to identify as anything. So if you can choose to identify as summer season, then I can choose to identify as Dubai.
Dubai. Awesome.
So right now we are hosting this show from the United States of Nigeria.
It didn't sound right.
No, at all.
But I know, I'm genuinely excited to be on set with everyone today. It's been an interesting week. I've been hiding in my house because the fuel scarcity, I just can't.
I entered the queue.
No.
And I fought.
That's the thing.
You
I think for me, that's the thing, that you have to show the side of you that
Razz
is
side.
so, it drains you.
Yes.
I mean, you get to the filling station and you're fighting, you're
Yes.
asking, you're outside of
You're
yourself.
outside of yourself. It's an out-of-body experience. And it's almost like somebody is recording it and you're watching yourself.
I know, there is that fear.
You know,
There is the fear that
I'm
maybe I'll
glad-
see
I'm
myself
glad
on
I-
Instagram. That's always my own fear.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Don't be caught, because I'm definitely going to analyze.
Because I wasn't going to fight, but I was on the queue for 4 hours. I'm not moving. People are buying fuel and coming out. I had to park the car. I went up and say, what is going on?
And you know, that's what I always say. I'm like, the fuel, when there's a fuel scarcity, the fuel is not coming out of the pump any slower. So if we all just queued as normal, the queue will keep moving. So I have to give it to the NNPC filling station in Ikoyi. That's one where I see organization. Like the line just keeps on moving. Like literally you come, you put your open pump and go. But here,
3 minutes
everybody,
max.
you will see one pump there, all 5 directions is compass. And that's the middle, true
There's
center.
the bike man, there is the gallon,
You
there's
know?
the vehicle, there's the other one on the side of
And
it.
recently, there are people dragging their generators to the
Are
filling
you?
station.
Yes.
You don't mean.
Yeah. That's, if you cannot remove the tank, you will degenerate it there.
We're really going through a lot.
We're saying all of this, right? And we're laughing. But the truth of it is, it's scary sad that this is what we're having to go through. Like,
Is it scary sad or is just mental? It's
no,
mental.
mental is the fact that we are laughing about it. No, that's what it is. This is the mental side of it.
I mean, I wish
But
we could stop.
you know-
Because, you know, I think that's the case because of how dramatic it is out there. You know,
and as
when you
Nigerians,
guys just said somebody carried their generator, I was like, wow.
Or then when I saw it, I just started
What's
laughing.
happening?
so we employ, nobody employs laughter as a coping mechanism better than Nigerians. Like we just keep laughing.
And then we keep
finding
creating memes.
We have to. We have to.
Skits.
But I mean, today's conversation is another one of those ones that if
Yeah,
you
I'm
can't
looking
cry,
forward to it.
you will
You
laugh.
laugh.
And also, it's my first time on the same set with Mercy and yourself in a while.
In a very, very long time. But here's what we found as today's quote. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. That's by George Bernard Shaw, and that's a very, very true statement. So today we're talking about demolitions. So the recent wave of demolitions of illegal structures in Lagos has sparked a heated debate regarding the balance between urban development and community rights. While the government argues that these demolitions are necessary for reclaiming public spaces and ensuring safety, many residents and activists are concerned about the impact on displaced communities and the lack of adequate settlement plans or adequate resettlement plans. So it's our ladies' night out today on Ways, and we're discussing the topic, balancing urban development and community rights. And when we open our phone lines, we'll love to hear what you have to say. But let's take a break and let's see what we found in the news. Please stay with us. You're still watching Ways. Now, World Asthma Day is an annual event held on the first Tuesday of May to raise awareness about asthma, a chronic respiratory condition that affects millions of people worldwide. It's organized by the Global Initiative for Asthma, GINA, to improve asthma awareness and care globally. The day aims to educate people about asthma, its triggers, symptoms, and management, as well as to advocate for better policies and resources for asthma patients. It's an opportunity for healthcare professionals, asthma organizations, and communities to come together to support those living with asthma and to work towards better asthma control and prevention strategies. Does anybody have asthma on this table?
No, I'm grateful I do not.
Yeah.
I'm probably someone who most likely would forget my inhaler here and there. Yeah,
She has the giggles today.
we really don't know what's going on.
She really does.
And go ahead.
Trust me, you will forget it.
It's
I
infectious.
mean, if your life depends
If
on
your
it.
life depends, you
No,
will not forget
But
it.
so I mean, when I saw this as part of International Day or a day that we're going to observe, it's really sad. Look around all of the 24.
Grass, and people say, "Oh, I don't cut grass, I have asthma." I'm like, "What's that?" And but when you see the people's lives that it impacts, I think the thing that stood out for me today, I mean, if we're going to drive awareness in Nigeria for something like this, I think it's really been impacted by the departure of one of the big pharmaceutical companies that was producing it. So in recent times, the cost of an inhaler has gone up about two and a half times what it was before.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
I think it's about 16,000 now. It's quite expensive.
Or
Yeah.
more than 16. It's actually even more than 6.
6,000.
How much you say?
36,000.
Yeah. That's what I was
So
going
when
to
they
say.
first left, it was.
1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry I
have the
spoke.
Exact
Yeah.
figure.
And that's coming from 7,500.
I know, because I
9,000.
remember when it was 6,000. Yes.
Yes.
So Zanzi's face is like.
That's like jaw drop.
It makes no sense. Yeah. That was the direct impact in that company leaving.
You can imagine those who have this now and how can they afford it?
Yeah.
That's why I said that's the real
minimum wage is
important part of
30,000
the.
naira.
That's the really important part of the story if we're going to acknowledge this day at this table today. But Sanzi, let me come to you for your story.
Okay, so my story, I'm going all the way to Uganda because the drama in Nigeria, I've just had enough of it. Fubara is back in the news, cybersecurity. I said, you know what, we need to fight another day. Let me laugh a little. Maybe move to another African country. So this time, Ugandan senator gets called out after proudly showing off the bridge he constructed for his community. I think if we can zoom into that bridge. So that is the bridge. That is the classic bridge that was
But that is a
constructed
bridge
for the
now.
community. Yes, it is a classic bridge.
But it's a bridge.
Yeah. Which even the Victorian era or the Dark Ages would be amazed.
But you are going far.
Think
But
of
don't
the
you have-
Vikings.
Don't you have plenty of these bridges in this year here in Nigeria?
Makoko.
Which
Makoko is fine. Inside this here, Lekki. It's here.
No, we don't have this kind of bridge.
So,
where?
but
I
how
haven't
do
seen
you
this
come
kind of
out with your full chest and proudly say that as a senator
Do
that
you
was
know
elected
whether
into
the
office,
people that are on the other side of this bridge were wading through the water? The man did a good job.
way through the water?
I don't know if that's sarcasm or
This is
that's
Africa.
No, this is. Say it louder.
This is Africa.
Thank you.
So what does that mean?
It means
It means that is a bridge.
it is a bridge.
I can't
I can't take you guys.
project.
And he completed it. You can go from one end, you can cross the bridge to
can
get
do
to the other
better.
side.
We can do better as a,
And the fact that he
as a
proudly
continent, actually, I said as a
he
continent.
proudly posed on it like, this is my achievement.
Mercy, what did you fight for us?
I think that what I found is a bit similar to what she shared. It's a senator representing Kanu North Central Senatorial District. He goes by the name Rufai Hanga, who shared 5,000 white pieces of cloth and clay pots to the people of his constituency. She's making me laugh. As burial materials for their loved ones. Hanga, you need to know that this man, because when I saw this, it saddens my heart. I know that it's very funny, but this is very sad, and this is actually very serious. Now, do you know that, Senator Hanga is a deputy minority chief whip of the 10th Senate, and is also in the new Nigerian People's Party. He's not of the APC, he's not of the PDP, he's not of any other party. You know how the conversations around political parties and they can do better and what have you. And I remember, of course, I'd seen some of his flyers during the 2023 election saying, oh, a new Nigeria is here. And I'm wondering, let's talk about constituency project, because now it's about constituency project. And the idea of, having constituency project has generated a lot of reaction, in different quarters in Nigeria. Some say that it is actually a sham, because it's shrouded in secrecy and what have you. But it saddens my heart that after 21 years of this idea, a senator in the Federal Republic of Nigeria would definitely, wake up and give his members or members of his constituency, white clothes and clay pots, for burying of their loved ones. And I really, I can't really wrap my head around it.
They may have been died without
On the streets.
being able to. No, because I want us to actually think about this in terms of problem solving. I know that he also paid.
I'm sorry.
He also
Uti,
paid
Uti, hold on, please. I'm sorry. Hold on before you come in there.
It.
Let me also remind you that the idea surrounding constituency project was introduced during the Obasanjo's era. Now, and I said that it's like since 1999, and the essence of all of this was to bring government closer to the people. The idea is about development. And there were also templates that were set up. Templates such as saying, okay, at the time, electrification of, rural community, water, provision of potable water and what have you. These are indices of development if you're going to talk about. And if we say the essence of bringing this, how do the people sit back to collect 100 billion yearly, annually, which is, being put in the budget and shared amongst 469, if I'm not mistaken, House of Member, both the federal and at the state level. And then, somebody wakes up to give. How is that a developmental project? How does that, go?
What if this is what the people want?
No, this is not what the
So
people
that's what
want.
I was going
Okay,
to
so
say.
It can't be. You know why? Because it's been.
That's what
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know why I would say that? A while back, I remembered when I was in the uni, I had a very close mentor, who was working within the oil sector. And I remember that we used to have this debate around, why there's so much pollution in these communities and, a whole lot of, why, in fact, it was at the beginning of all the Niger Delta drama, time. And I had gone to our office on one of these occasions, and I remember that at the lobby, we were all in the lobby, and there was a meeting going on, and it was a case of their leadership, their community leadership, saying, you know what, we know what we want. Don't come and say that you want to build schools or you want to give us electricity. Or this was something that I experienced life, and I think for me, from that day, it just changed the way I thought about people. That sometimes you make,
we project what are
we even see that on the road when people want to fix the road. And some people would say, you know what, don't fix this road. Leave it for us like that. So Nigerians, yes, I do get where you're coming from. But why funny people?
No, I don't.
So the reason why, so let me just chip this in. The reason why I say, so this is a very specific thing, clay pots and burial cloths. It's very, very specific.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of random thing you just wake up and do.
Isn't
And it
it
wasn't the only
thoughtful?
thing that he did. I think he paid for jam for about 200 students as well. So it's not a random. We don't have enough,
Yeah.
right, to understand the thought process. We don't have enough in the story, enough information in the story to understand the thought process behind it. But it's such a specific thing that I want to believe that there is some conversation around it. It may not be a big challenge that we can connect with because we're not in that community, but
So to tell you how government is, central.
Yeah.
To provide public goods to ensure that the people have a better life. Policies are supposed to be. It's like you having a child. You're supposed to guide the child, help the child take right decision, and you're not going to say, "Oh, my child doesn't want to have a shower today, so therefore don't have a shower." That can never work, Or you don't want to eat today, so I don't feel like eating, so you should not eat. That's why you have the government. Issues of people having access to potable water. As we speak in Kano Central, drinking.
yeah.
Well,
the
how about
impact
the issues
of
of you have beggars on the streets?
Yeah.
You get my point. I'm saying,
So
it might be
it-
peculiar, but I'm saying that there are other issues that are in that community
I
that
hear
should
you,
be.
and I think that there is a place for both perspectives in the conversation.
Okay.
But we're going to turn this thing you said, turn it into a whole other
A
show.
whole conversation.
Diala, what did you find for us?
Okay, so for me, Nigerians woke up today to a new levy. That's the cyber crimes security levy. And for most people, it's new, but I mean, there's been, you know, this is an act that has been since 2015, and I mean, this is an amendment. And again, during the course of the day, I've had arguments with people who said, well, I mean, CBN and the financial institution, they just want to take and, you know, but I mean, security and its own electronic transactions, 0.5% of electronic transactions. The person to take this responsibility would be
The banks.
the no, I mean the person who would pay it is the
The
person
sender
initiating
is the sender who
the
is supposed to
transaction.
pay.
Yeah, yeah. So of course, there's been a lot of information around this all over the media today. But again, it's very important that when we are having conversations like this, we focus on the facts of it, you know, and not, I mean, because I know that a lot of people would probably get to the bank. There's been a lot of talk about, oh, I'm going to shut down my account, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But again, I mean, I have questions as to the fact that, I mean, why do we have to pay for this? And I remember that I had this conversation with you just before we go on air, and you did say that this is something the financial institutions
Have been paying.
have had
Have
to
been
be
paying.
paying and all that. So by and large, I mean, I'm all for, while it may look like, I think personally that this may be a good policy, but at the wrong time. It just came at the wrong time. I mean, considering all the things that Nigerians are going through right now, and I think it could have been positioned better, in a better way, when people are more receptive to things like this. But again, I also think that it is very important to understand the why, you know, of this, so that, I mean, everybody can have this sense of, okay, at least I know what it is for. But right now, it's just generic. It's cybercrime.
I think that there was a post going around today with all the different charges associated with, you know, transfers now, because this is also and when you are pushing electronic payments as the alternative to cash, some of these things may seem like hindrances. But I think that, again, I won't say the same thing I said to Mercy to you. The whole levy conversation
It's another
show. But we need to jump into today's topic. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Members of our House of Assembly or the National Assembly, who you have said are supposedly our representatives, who are supposed to be representing our interests, making laws that will be executed by the executive. These same people who you are saying that need to help us are people who have been helping themselves in the past. These are people who have only made laws that only hold us accountable and not necessarily them. Again, in the recent past, we've seen them fight for cars and monies and sitting allowances that are much more higher than the amount of money that a university professor takes home as his pay. And most of these professors still haven't received their pay. Who's to say that these same people that you're talking about accountability on their past will cut off their nose to spite their face?
Thanks for staying with us tonight. We're diving headfirst into the conversation about the contentious issue gripping our city, the recent demolitions of property and illegal structures from Jakande Estate to Mende, and even under bridges. No corner of Lagos seems untouched by the bulldozer's blade. But amidst the rubble, questions linger. Are these demolitions a necessary step towards progress, or do they trample upon the rights of marginalized communities? Our topic tonight is balancing urban development and community rights. Please let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 0818 038 4663.
Right. So one of the so one of the people suffering this demolition as well is Landmark, the Lagos Coastal highway. And with everything happening, I was listening to Yemi Alade's rant, and she was like, this is going to reduce the real estate value of Lagos. And while she made a valid point, I'm thinking, who had the original plan of Lagos and who gave out these lands? Because if these lands, some of these people will claim that, oh, we got it through the right, we got certificate of ownership, or what is it, the land deed?
The CFO?
Thank you. From the official minister of land, or whoever is the person in charge of giving out these official documents. And so years later, you're demolishing it. And for instance, the coastal highway, I remember I was talking to someone and he said that the owner of Landmark did the right thing, got the right documents and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, so how come years later you're coming to demolish it? Is it like the government doesn't have an idea of how do I put it? Is it that the government doesn't have an idea or doesn't have a plan of what to do with the land, and then suddenly they woke up and realized, oh, this was a mistake, we need to reverse it, after people have invested in this? And you know, land investment is not for 2 years. We're talking 20 years, 30 years for the next generation. I think in Nigeria, you're meant to own a land for like 90 years or thereabout before it goes back. Before it goes back to the government. So 50 years down the line, this happens.
So I think that you've touched on a few key things that set the scene for the conversation really well. The landmark situation is unfortunate, and I think that for me speaks more to the aspect of there was a actual road that was dedicated to this project that is still there, and there is now the conversation that this has to be moved for various different factors, part of which is the extent to which, if it takes the proposed, if it takes the existing route, planned route, that there will be a lot more affected properties that would need to be demolished to achieve this. So that's part of the factors that they've mentioned in terms of this. But the key thing that you talked about there was he had the correct documentation, right? This was properly done. So this doesn't fall into the category of illegal structures. And I think that it's good to frame the conversation by talking about what the basis is for the law. Let's start from
Land
what the basis and land
law.
ownership.
Okay.
So in Nigeria, we have the Land Use Act. That's what governs what we do, right? And the idea that you have a certificate of occupancy that says that the government has given you permission to use the land, right? And then you have a what is it called? Is it like a planning permission? There's a plan that says this is what you can do with that property. Is it residential? Is it commercial? Can you build 2 or 3? Before you even get to the building permit, there's the plan, the survey, there's the plan. So there's like a master plan. So you can't take a land today that doesn't have a plan to build a 10-story building and then go and build a 10-story building. So you are getting the building permit towards building what you're supposed to build, where you're supposed to build it, right? But then, that being said, there is provision to say the government, for the greater good of the public, right, the government can can reclaim a land, so they can recall that certificate of occupancy. So there's nothing in the act that says that it is impossible. So there is a provision in there that says that if the government says
has need for it,
there is a need for it, I can recall it, right? And that's where things like compensation start to come in. So the thing I think that I find is that when you hear these things, you almost wonder if there is a clear process, and there is, right? Now, there is a challenge, and we all have it in Nigeria. We are not lacking for policies.
Implementation.
The implementation, execution, the sustainability of it is usually where the problem is. So we've seen, I remember a few years ago when they were demolishing some place in Ikoyi where you had Noli Juice, we had all of that. We've had the Abuja episode, we've had the Jakonde episode recently. So you find that this keeps happening over and over and over. And on one side, you will sometimes hear the government say, we've come here many times, we've notified them, we've told them. And that may very well be true, because in terms of due process, you should notify people that you are coming to demolish. It doesn't mean that the person that you've notified has somewhere to go, because I think that's always where there is a confusion, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then how long does it take for compensation? Now, there's also challenges with documentation. So there are people who believe they have documentation. You know how when you see, this house is not for sale, or buyer beware, right? People buy properties that legally
Yeah,
belong to the
They
state,
fulfilled
Yeah.
every
earmarked for
requirement.
some sort of project. And then when they come, it's like somebody has essentially taken advantage of you. And perhaps maybe whatever checks were done were not sufficient enough to show that those issues exist. Then there's the legal structures. There was the stories a few days ago of people paying 250,000 naira rent under
Under
the
the
bridge,
Oh yeah, there is that
right?
one.
So there are multiple factors that this issue sits upon, right? But it's important sometimes because I think that a lot of the time, and it's not unfair, it's just our reality, everything government is bad, everything government is wrong. So there's never that sort of balance to say, was there proper notification, was due process? Because you always hear them say due process was followed. But it doesn't mean that people are not displaced, right? And that for me is my own perspective on this entire conversation today is welfare. We don't have a welfare system. The people that tend to be displaced, Landmark is a big business. He's shouted, he's made noise, the minister came. I mean, it still didn't save his business.
And 2.7 billion naira compensation, it just doesn't cut it. That's a property worth over $200 billion.
But that's 2.7. There are a great many people who don't even get that.
They wouldn't even get one.
So it's actually a very sensitive and sad issue. And as some of the things that you have said, very correct, is the fact that we have laws. Government is not supposed to be entirely bad. I would always say this, and every other time I have an opportunity, I'll keep saying that government exists to make sure that life is easy for the people, for the purpose of governance. They have a right to say, okay, if there's need for this land, there might be need for it. It might be, economically viable. The plan might be good, but is government acting in accordance with the law? Because typically, what is expected that there should be legal process that should be followed if you want to demolish, an illegal structure. First of all, if you did your bidding as government, then we would not be talking about the illegal structures in the first place. Yep. So first of all, government has failed, and that's why we're having a conversation of illegal structure. And so it would be a conversation of saying, how do we then now stop all of this? How do we stop, the illegal structures? But let's keep on with the entire process. You say you have to start, you have to obtain, a court order. So we're asking, all of these, buildings that have been demolished in Lagos and across, did this government obtain, court orders that authorize the demolition of the structure? They just wake up to go and demolish it. Did you give these persons notice? It's expected that you give them notice. And apart from that, you're also going to allow them, this notice will allow them to respond, and you get into some necessary kind of agreement. There's supposed to be an arrangement. You can't displace people. So we would rather see a government who is acting, not acting with empathy and consideration. We don't know if these processes have been followed. So the cost for wanting to reclaim these properties might be correct, might be for the greater good, but then again, did you also act in consideration?
In good faith.
Yeah, in good faith. Thinking about the affected communities, what plans have been made, especially housing. Don't forget that urbanization is a big issue. Lagos is exploding. People are coming in because they think the opportunities are here.
Exactly.
And that's the reason for, because population is growing, there's need for houses. And because of that's why you're having people
I
under
want
the
you to
bridges.
hold that thought
Okay.
about population explosion because I really don't want us to gloss over that. It's a key factor here, but we need to take a quick break. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
This beat is good for crumping.
Thanks for staying with us. Before the break, we scratched the surface on the issue touching on the government's rationale and the concerns of affected communities. Please let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us a text message or WhatsApp to 0818-038-4663. Our phone line is also now open. You can call us on 0702 500-7749. Please do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set so we can have a great conversation. So, before we went, before we took the break, Mercy was talking about population explosion. You know, when you were talking about the senator earlier and seeing his flyers before...
I hope it's not what I'm thinking.
No, before the election, most times, particularly in Lagos, there's always promises about how many houses we're going to build.
Right.
because there is mass migration to Lagos. It's a center of business, it's a
Commercial
center of
hub.
excellence, a commercial
Yes.
hub, exactly. So people will keep pouring into Lagos. So we have a need, and there is the law of supply and demand, right? It will, if anybody had told you before the story broke last week that somebody took out ₦250,000 to pay for a space under a bridge, we would have been giggles, would have been laughing. It would have sounded absolutely ludicrous.
It's still hard to believe despite reading it in the news.
Right? So the fact is, that point you're making, Mercy, is so key. But where there's a will, where there's a need, there must be a way. So people will find it. So the illegal structures, there is a need that is feeding them, right? Because the government is not able to meet the demand for housing, and not just housing, cost-effective housing. Because every time these structures get demolished, it's most times it's shanties, it's the poorer neighborhoods where people have built all sorts of makeshift housing. We see it time and time again. And the reason why this is so painful is that the due process just sort of sweeps all these people away under illegal structures. But these are lives. These are people. I remember when the Jakonde one happened recently, there was a lady who newborn twins. And there was a heavy rain that I think fell like 2 days after that. The woman was literally outside, right? Today, in fact, it was just today, I received an email from one of my direct reports saying a member of her team sent her a message that they had been given notice that their houses were going to be demolished tomorrow. So it continues to happen, right? And this compensation, the compensation is for, even if it's a genuine structure, the compensation is for the homeowner. The tenants in the home.
Paid rent. What happens to
What
them?
happens to them, right? So I think it's safe to say that this due process needs optimization for starters.
Another question is, what is the impact of this on the Lagos real estate generally? Because if, like you said, law of demand and supply, which means that if landowners or real estate agents are noticing that there is more demand for buildings because perhaps a lot more people are being displaced, that means that the cost of buildings are going higher. That's one. And then also there is a certain insecurity that now grows over buying lands or buying properties, because people start losing faith. Should I go for this? How do I know that if I buy this in 2 years or in 5 years, the government won't come and say, oh, this belongs to me? So there is a gain part of it, and there is also the losing part of it for real estate.
Okay, so, I mean, for me, I like the point that you made around population. And yes, a lot of times in Nigeria, we really do not believe the government, even when they're trying to do the bigger, you know, the larger,
The right thing.
and all that. And I am speaking from experience to say that, again, sometimes it's no fault of the government. I'm not holding brief for the government, but I mean, there's erosion, there's a whole lot, you know, that can cause the government to say that, okay, you know what, we need to do this here and now. I'll give an example. This, what's the name of this estate in Maryland that just got demolished?
Is it
The one in Mende?
The one in Mende. Okay. Now, for anyone who knows that access well, you're building houses almost on top of canals. There has been, for so many years, every time it rains in that neighborhood, it's just mad.
So the question now is, how did those structures...
Building permit planning.
Okay, so it's something that had been... The river was quite small. I remember because I schooled in Maryland. It was very small at a time. But I don't know, maybe with erosion, it just kept getting bigger and bigger, that it started threatening the property. Exactly, the property. And I know that for years, the government had been in talks with them. So if people try to make a sensation out of the fact that, oh, the government just came, woke up one day, and then just, it's a lie. That one, me, I'm saying that one.
But
I don't know about other areas. Hold on. Now, it becomes the responsibility of the government to compensate those with the right documentation, right? If I have all my documentation, my deed of title, my deed,
certificate
everything,
of occupancy,
I can
my
take
land
the
dues,
So
and
exact.
here's
all
I
the
are
can
paid.
question,
take
Yola.
the
How
government.
do you have the right documentation when you are building on a canal? Who gave that
So again,
title deed?
it's an ecosystem. So like Uti said, for these kind of things to work, everybody must sit down. You take your own responsibility. The government has defaulted in a lot of ways, but we as a people as well, again, sometimes in our bid to, oh, I got this property or this land very cheap, distress sale, let me quickly buy this. Again, there is a need. People need houses. In Lagos, if you have a property in Lagos, you're like a king, really. I mean, if you're not paying rent, that's, I mean, your
One of the big
expense
three.
is exactly,
Yeah, rent
you
is a
know.
big deal.
So there is that desperation for that. So people would always fall into that trap of not doing due diligence. I think if people begin to say, you know what, you're a developer or you're a landowner or whatever you want to sell, let me take this to the appropriate place, let me check. Now, we also now have to ask the government, do you have the proper database of information for all these things? Because if you don't have proper, I mean, a place where you collate information where people can easily access, then it becomes
So I
your
like that you
responsibility.
said this, because the thing that came to my mind when I saw all of this, because really for me, there are a lot more tenants than owner-occupied
Yeah.
properties, and there is nothing that I've seen in any of these provisions that speaks to the occupier of the property. It just speaks to whoever has the documentation, which means it's the owner. But I said something. In Lagos State today, we have a residence registration agency. Now, we've talked many times on the show about the different BVN, NIN, blah, blah, blah.
LASRA.
Everything.
You know? Now, let me take something like LASRA, because databases and information is
Yeah.
very key.
Very key.
The day I register an address, let's even say that planning permits, all of those things were done on one side, or on the second side, they were not done. But I then brought an address to the government to register as my residence. There should be something in that process of that registration to say, this address you've given me, is it a structure you should be living in? Is it a legal structure? Is it a structure that has all the right plans? Is this a structure that perhaps, given the landmark issue, the Lagos Coastal Road is over, plans are over 10 years old. Is it a plan that perhaps there is something here that is coming that will affect this, right? Or we are in the process of carrying out an environmental impact assessment. So you see, because information is key.
Right.
So all of these things, if you have the proper records, then there should be something flashing on a system somewhere.
That's why I'll still
Data.
stand on the fact that, you know, it is nobody's fault that we're where we are today. Whether you have somebody building a house on a canal, am I the one that is in charge or controlling the entire process? It is government. And when we say government here, we're not talking about directly about maybe the governor. Yes, of course, it would be the governor because he has people working for him. But it might not be his direct responsibility, but it is his responsibility because he's the commander-in-chief and in charge of security of the state, even if he will claim he's not in charge of the security apparatus. But of course, it is his business. And the business of governance, again, is the business of ensuring that lives and properties are protected, not in this way. That's what we're saying, that for whatever reason, yes, these mistakes have happened because you have failed in your responsibility as a government to ensure that these illegal structures are not erected in the first place. Secondly, if you had provided, you know, especially for a city as Lagos, right, housing consent, you see how, you know, the movement across different parts. Now, recently, government is relocating people, saying they are relocating some, you know, stranded persons back to their different states and all of that. Now, the point is, if government in itself, because as you talked about data. Do we know the number of people, the children that are born every day? Do we know the number of people that are in? You see the number of people that are coming in. Do we have all of this data? So you make plans. Because the reason for having this data and all of that is so that a government can plan in terms of housing, healthcare, and all of that. We cannot just sit back and fold our arms and then expect things to happen. Like I always say, decentralize this Lagos. Decentralize it. too many resources. And when these governors gather together at the table of what they call it, as we're all gathered here, let's assume that we're, you know, we're governors. We're all, what are we talking about? What are they always talking about? Why can't these governors begin to lobby that some of these resources in Lagos be decentralized to other states? So that the population, because it feels like you can't control it. That's the whole drama. There's a lot of drama. So, the population stress will begin to...
that, I think that different states are not as agile.
Yeah.
So it's not even the problem of agile. To be very honest, this is a conversation. If we say, you know, it's like saying, oh, tell other businesses to go. Everything is politics. There's a lot of politics and politicking that's going on.
Why I say so again is that it comes down to resources. It comes down to, what's that called now? Total addressable market, right? I'm not going to move my business because you've said.
No, nobody's saying move your business. For instance, now, you know how everybody talks about, is it the Lagos port that is, you know, when we're going to have the Lekki port, when they started, you know, the whole process and all of that, a lot of people started asking why, you know, Lekki ports. People raised concern of, you know, the traffic situation. First of all, the road network in Lagos, it's bad. It's poor. There are no road. Just one road, especially on the island. Everybody's going one way. And the day that we'll have need for stampeding, when it comes, maybe, what's that thing called? Zombies coming somewhere or one thing come. Everybody will just be on the same place. And people will just be struggling. You know, that's what I'm trying to say.
So I hear what you're saying.
The network is not okay.
The network, I totally get your
telling
point.
people to relocate their businesses.
Yes.
But we're saying, you know, strategically.
Develop other areas,
Do you
right?
understand?
And that's
why
what,
are the seaports not working in other parts of the
Because
country?
And the governors in those other states,
why I'm
are they
saying that-
making their places
So
attractive?
my point is, when you gather in this forum as governors, what do you guys discuss?
But you see,
Well, maybe
the
because you're
four
on
of
the
us-
outside, you
no,
can
but
see.
Diola, the four of us
they're
at
not
this
discussing
table
anything.
have different capacity,
Yeah.
and we have different mindsets as governors. We came
Exactly.
to office to do different
Things.
and because I am ready to move forward, I'm not going to wait for you.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
So
okay,
No,
I'll
that's
leave
what
that
it is.
fly.
I'm not going to wait
I'll
for
leave
you.
that fly.
Right? Because you see states who are actively
Yeah.
taking whatever limited resources. There was a video that we shared, and we were talking about the lady who said, we are Nigerian, but I'm Ijo, and my oil. What other resources are the remaining 20-something states bringing to the table? That's a very valid question,
And
right?
know,
You see,
okay,
it is the
going
same.
Sorry, Mercy, I was going to just piggyback on what she said concerning that, because the truth is, if those, oh dear, I think I forgot what I was going to say.
Don't worry, when you...
I hate it for a while. I hate it.
So you maybe you should pen it down. It'll come back to you.
But so the thing for me is, because when I think about these things, it's not even just a Lagos problem, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's happened in Abuja. It's happened
Yeah.
all over the country. So when we're talking about balancing that urban development with community rights, I think we now need to start thinking about the community, because the urban development is happening. I think that this current administration, it seems like
Serious about it,
development
yeah.
is their thing.
Yeah.
I'm hearing Lagos Calabar Coastal Way.
Yeah.
I'm hearing Badagry,
Pray they
Kano.
don't abandon the
Yeah.
project.
And
I'm
another
hearing
road.
Badagry,
thing.
Kano.
Yeah.
So-
yeah.
It's not today we have the
So
Nigeria
this
Togo.
is, well, so this is the agenda, obviously. So it means that this particular problem we're discussing today is here to stay, at
Yeah.
least for the next 3 years, right? So if we think about it, right, what is the real solution? Because these are real humans' lives. It's not about who has documentation, who has paperwork. When the Jakande issue happened, my church has relocated over 90 families to proper housing
church.
with you know.
And that's the work of humanity, and that's what we're
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah.
Bless
Yeah.
them, bless
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
So-
and your
so-
commission.
Yes.
Honestly,
Because,
you
but
know.
you know, so and the thing is that, and that is because that is the real impact of this thing. Forget the development, forget the demolishing.
But there is a welfare agency in Lagos State.
And so that's where I'm coming to now, right? I haven't seen anything in my little research that says that there is a pool of money or a pot of money somewhere
Dedicated
that
to
is
their
dedicated to
welfare.
this
Yeah.
process. That says that I see that beyond the person who owns the property and has the documentation and paperwork, their lives destroyed. In fact, that was why I went to look at LASTRA to say, what is the objective of this agency? Because if you say, yes, I've exercised my right to reclaim this land, and there's a purpose for it, you know, that is overarching for the public good, that's fine, right? I followed due process, that's fine. I notified, that's fine. I've demolished. Then they are actual human beings. There's a community that has been, you know, affected.
Where
Now,
do
what
they
are we
go
really
to?
doing for this community? Am I now providing to say, you know what, even if it is 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira, but there is something that shows that the government understands that there is a human face.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Yes, to this problem. right? That is the bit that is missing. And then that is not a lengthy process. That it's not about, oh, I have to go and bring 100 things to say, treat it, even if you will, like a palliative.
In fact, they can even get the private sector involved. I mean, and people will be too happy. Trust Nigerians. Will be too happy.
So that's the thing for me.
And just like you said, when I started saying, I said it's important that government act in consideration. You know, have empathy. You know, put yourself, because empathy is about putting yourself in another person's shoe and feeling what they will feel if it were you. And I feel like, except they are saying government just wakes up one day.
Exactly, and just came to the community.
You could probably begin to put some of these housing, little structures, try to rehabilitate these persons. Even if they literally have to pay, maybe they don't have to pay so much, you know, at the time to cushion the effect. Because, I mean, it's a lot.
You know, and to add to what you just said, this is where the local government structure comes in.
Yeah.
Because they are closer to direct
rural areas.
Yes.
They do for this process.
All right, so we do have some messages on YouTube. An amazing show as usual. Thank you. Uminelli says, I think what the government should do is implement a law that while buying a property, the buyer should inquire from the government to know if the land is at a right place. Before
More and more people just need to rise up to when these things happen, and be able to help communities find their feet again, and help people to find a future, a way forward. And as we go forward, we will see more demolitions. It's important to check your no, I was going to say check your paperwork.
It's very
important.
important.
There was the story a couple of days, was it the commissioner that said 70 to 80%?
Yeah, 80%
of the houses in Lekki, don't have the right paperwork, right?
Hey,
so if you don't know, what I'm just saying is that to leave our viewers with the fact that, please, if you are not sure, go and ask your landlord.
asking
so that it's not the day they come.
But
But thank you, ladies. It's been an awesome conversation. Having 4 women on this set has been so warm and so really lovely doing it with you guys, and thank you to our viewers. Before we go, do ensure that you follow us on Instagram at Waste Show Africa and Official Upgrade TV. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, follow all our social media engagements. Remember to ask your family, your friends to watch and follow Waze. Remember, don't watch Waze alone. If you missed our quote, here it is again. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. We'll see you again tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Bye-bye.